So, are you ready for our first speaker of the day? Building a big enterprise project can be quite challenging, especially when the wrong direction has been taken from the very beginning. The reason why a project might fail can be various. Among the most frequent ones, lack of communications and engineers failing to understand how problems need to be solved can be listed. As a result, written code is difficult to adjust and refactor. Tasks are not finished on time, and in general, the code doesn't reflect what was meant to. If you're looking for an approach which will help you tackle complexity during development software project, stay tuned for our keynote, Domain-Driven Design Software Engineering. Meet Elena Melashchenko, Tech Team Engineer at Moonfair.
Good morning, Anna.
Hi, Elena. I see you are feeling great. Did you participate in our stretching and meditation session? Or you're just feeling great, everyone?
I participated. It was really useful, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm very happy to hear that. The stage is all yours, and please enjoy.
Thank you so much. And to be honest, I would like to say, first of all, thank you, Anna, and your team to organize this conference. It's really tremendous work has been done there. Super great job, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes. And good morning, everyone. So let me first of all share my screen. Hope you can see it right now. So my name is Elena, and I'm working as a tech team lead at Moonfair. Today, I'm going to show you how domain-driven design can help you to tackle different complex issues which you can face with building big software projects. On the example of the company where I'm working right now, I'm going to show you the initial approach we used exactly to build the platform and which kind of issues we faced, what we did, and which kind of approaches we were trying to have, and exactly how domain-driven design are there to help to solve different issues during the building the projects. And then afterwards, I'm going to show you some small examples. How can you integrate this approach into your project, even though it's a monolithic or small one, it doesn't matter. And in the end, I will explain the advantages and disadvantages of this approach. But before starting explaining you about all of these technical things, let me first of all introduce myself. And basically, if you can see, like, I'm from Ukraine. Finishing the university 8 years ago, I became a software engineer. The first 3 years, I was working in the different digital companies in Ukraine, where I've been able to learn PHP, MySQL, JavaScript, all the different web technologies which are helping you to build the web applications. So this actually experience helped me to be recruited by one of the biggest companies in Berlin called Delivery Hero. So 5 years ago, I moved to live in Germany. And here, by joining the team, I saw that it's not only important to be a great developer, but it's super important that you have a great communication skills. You have a great supportive team. You are a very great team member, and you all together are trying to achieve a different business goals. You have a leader on whom you can rely on, and you have an atmosphere which helps everyone to really enjoy doing what they do and what they build. So with one of my colleagues from Delivery Hero, 2 years ago, we joined the Moonfair. And we've been first software engineers in-house at that time. And we had a really huge mission to build the team who will help us to achieve the business goals and build the platform to solve all of the problems related to it. And I would say we really achieved it. We have an amazing team right now with more than 15 engineers in-house. And from the beta project, which was the 2 years ago when I've joined, to the project which we have right now, it's really like a tremendous changes has been done there. But before explaining you about the technical backstage of this, let me tell you first of all what we do in our company. So Moonfair, it's a company where we build the platform to allow the investors from around the world being able to invest into different private equity funds with a lower minimum. Before digitalizing this process, this things has been taking weeks offline. It was back and forth communication between the investors and our account services team, asking for any details like emailing, sending the documents, etc. It was really hard and manual work. So our founders started thinking about how can we improve this process and make it much easier. And right now, with our platform, this process, if the investors are know like details about the investment, they are able to do everything in 15 minutes. So from weeks to 15 minutes, it's a great change. So let me show you what actually we do on the platform. The process in general are really pretty straightforward. So users are able to register and log in on the platform. They basically need to go through the KYC check, which stands for Know Your Customer, where we're asking the investors, are they understanding about the risks? Are they where their money coming from? And basically, we need also to do the ID verification to making sure that the user sitting on the another side of the screen is actually a person, real one. Whenever we'll do our check that everything is okay with a person who is doing this KYC check, we will allow the investors to go to see all details regarding the fund on our platform, which is, by the way, we have around 15, 20, and it's really a lot. After they will see all of the information on the platform, they will be able to allocate amount of the money, and as a last step, sign the documents required by the fund. So in reality, the process doesn't look that complex. But the thing is that for the past 3 years, this process has been changing significantly. First of all, that whenever we will launch in the platform in the different countries, they had different legal requirements in behind. There was different requirements for process of the sequence of the process on the platform. Also, different documents was required to be signed by the people from different countries. And also, not a long time ago, we launched our B2B. Means that we have another type of the users on the platform. They call them account managers. They are able to do the portfolio management of their investors and like having the huge amount of investors where they can do all of the allocations for them. So you understand that basically, even though that was beta and small functionality in there, like it was changing a lot. There was needed the business logic adjusted. And sometimes because of the approach which we used, it was super hard to do that. And let me explain what was the initial approach in there. So in general, like in the beginning, like the approach was that we were using the services where we were placing different business logic in it. The entities which we have as a huge like objects in our platform, they are actual representations of the database tables. And they are bringing a lot of responsibilities in it. Means that by entity which are fully representing the tables in the database, they know everything about how they are stored and which kind of data they have. And whenever you reuse those entities in the project, it's like kind of you can change everything in them. And whenever you do anything small, like small changes inside, basically you can really break the functionality like in other different places. With the services, which has been reused as well in the different places, this business logic was also being changed a couple of times by different people who are working in this in the code base. Sometimes like engineers wasn't understanding exactly the requirements was in before and how they need really to change them. Also, it was happening that some business logic had like using the terminology, which was one in the beginning and understandable in another way in the end. For example, investment and fund, like allocation and subscription, where subscription is actually another state of the allocation, and like etc. So I can name them a lot, but basically the change in which we needed to do for the past 2 years was really sometimes making hard. There was sometimes requirements, basically like we were asking, we need to do the refactoring to make it work. And sometimes it was happening basically that the customer was asking to build something one, And through different stages, which we could have through the development of specific issues, like specific problems, in the end, it was not exactly what sometimes client was expected to have. And prevent happening such issues and find out how can we really solve those problems, we're starting looking for the approach which can help us to do that. And here it comes, domain-driven design. So domain-driven design, actually, it's not something new on the market. So back in 2003, which is 17 years ago, Eric Evans, in his book called Domain-Driven Design, Tackling Complexity in the Heart of the Software, provided the different techniques and approaches which can help exactly to solve the issues which we faced during the building the platform. Even though the platform was really small in the beginning, it became a really big monolithic project. And how can we really adjust and make the code much simpler and find the cleaner way to make the providing different business changes required? Like exactly this approach are there to help. So in the center of everything, Eric Evans placed the domain model. Domain is actually the business where you are working. For example, for us, it's exactly the process of the investment. And the model is the solution which you can make and build for solving the domain problems required by the business. So whenever you focus first on building the domain model, you already have the win-win in terms of solution which you can make for the platform. So basically, whenever you have the complex project, it's also important that everyone in the future can come back and do any adjustments are needed without really refactoring the whole platform in it. So what the first steps you need to making sure that you can really bring the solutions and solve the problems which the company have and want to build. First of all, Eric Evans emphasized in the point that you need to have a common understanding between the domain experts and engineers regarding what they solve there. So it's super important that they use the same language, the same terminology to find out how the problem needs to be solved. Because usually, domain experts, they use their jargon, their terminology related to the business. But sometimes engineers using their technical terminology during the conversations. And not always they are on the same page regarding how the problem needs to be solved. And whenever guys are building this language first, in the first stage, they basically need to use this language for any conversations they have, for any documentation they write, and the code that which guys write. Because basically, whenever software engineer will write the code with using this language in the first step, this code needs to be understandable like a normal book, even though the engineers, domain experts are not technical people. And basically, in the first step, you can easily give this code to read for them and ask the feedback. Is it exactly what we are looking for? Is it exactly the solution which we were needed to build? So whenever you have the common understanding with the engineers and software and domain experts, you basically build the language, you build the needed, for example, you made UML diagrams, any sequence diagrams needed for solving specific problem. You need to make sure that your team is exactly focusing to solve it. That they do not think about what other teams are solving, how do they work on another problems. You have your context, and you need to really put an effort to solve it in the beginning. To focus to do that, Eric Evans suggests to have bounded contexts. Basically, by building the boundaries, you can help engineers and also domain experts to build the language and encapsulate the business logic inside this context without thinking about how anything else will be developed in the other stages and in other teams. What does it mean? Let me just maybe present an example of, for example, ordering any products you do on any websites, like Amazon. Whenever you're ordering something, it's already the whole domain of process for ordering a product. But if you would try to solve all of this domain problem at once with the huge amount of engineers and domain experts, you could really conflict with each other. There would be different language used between each other, and it would be really hard to maintain and then in the future adjust by any improvements are needed to be done there. So that's why, like, basically by splitting into bounded contexts, like on the picture you can see delivery or finance, you can exactly split your big problem, big domain, into smaller one, and then easily give these smaller pieces to the different engineers and different teams to build. For example, in the delivery bounded context, you have the customer who is like as well doing the order. And in this domain bounded context, you need only to know his address. That's it. Like, for example, where does he want his product being delivered, and like which kind of product he actually ordered. But for finance, like whenever he pays for this product order, you need to know his financial address or any bank accounts he has, like PayPal, MasterCard. And you can see, like, it's different things you're gonna solve. And exactly by splitting it, you can easily focus on building this business rules inside without interaction with other teams, without breaking their job at the same time. So by having like language established, everyone on the same page of understanding that what they needs to build, with understanding which kind of boundaries they gonna focus on and solve the problems. Here it comes like making sure that your code base is able to help you to do that, or to focus exactly to build the domain model first. To do that, Eric Evans suggests to have different layers where you can put the different responsible code and focus exactly to build the domain model in the first steps. Let me explain which kind of layers he suggests to have. Presentational layer, it's actually that layer which you, the client see on the website. For example, the form where he's entering the data, or the data like some block information, like which he interacts with. Presentational layer is asking an applicational layer, please get me, for example, some details, or please store my information in the database. Applicational layer, it's a layer which basically exactly responsible for any requests which are coming from the client, and the responses which he returns to the client in the way which client expects to have. On application layer shouldn't be any business logic. All the business logic needs to be placed on the domain layer. Before jumping to the domain, which is the heart of the whole domain-driven design, let me tell about the infrastructure layer. Infrastructure layer is exactly the layer which helps to solve the different things related for application and domain layers. On infrastructure layer, you can place things regarding like any databases you need to have, like MySQL, NoSQL, or you plan to use file system, or you plan to use caching to store the data. Do you need to get the data from any third parties, any other like APIs which you have in place, or like everything like the lower details regarding like the storages, connections to anything, infrastructure layer are there to help to do. And here, the center of everything, domain model. Domain layer basically is exactly the place which I would say you need to start from the beginning to build the code. In the domain layer, you place your exact like model to solve specific problems. There you place the business rules in usages of the ubiquitous language which you established during the brainstorming with your domain experts. And whenever you build the first, like these objects needed to solve the needed problems, you can right away, as a first step, before the building any other layers, get the feedback from the domain experts. And if there is a need, adjust it. If not, you can proceed to right away writing the unit tests, which will help to prove that you will not break your functionality and that they are protected. And then proceed with implementing any storing to the database, or implementing who will fetch this data and how they operate with it. So as you can see, domain layer is the heart of the whole business problem domain-driven solutions. So what exactly needs to be in the heart of this domain layer? And there are building blocks for that. The first building block of the domain model is the value objects. Value objects are immutable objects which are having the attributes in it representative of the entities. These value objects can be reused in the different entities, and they can hold different business logic related to those attributes. For example, it can be the name of the investor. You know that you need to have the first name and last name, which investor have, and making sure that they are not empty. And for example, they are 2 or 3 characters long. Without also placing this logic inside entities, which basically will really grow and be too big for maintaining. Value objects are there to really hold different logic related to the different attributes of those entities. Also, for example, this name can be reused by investor entity and account manager entity. And the same logic will be in one place. It's like you remember DRY, which stands for don't repeat yourself. So the next step is an entity. These entities are identity on our platforms. They are having the life cycling. They are unique. They hold also business logic related to it. For example, as an entity could be on our platform, it's an investor, account manager, fund, allocation, and there are a bunch of them. They are unique because there is no such investor like twice should be existing on the real world. And entity can have different value objects as a part of his attributes representative, and some other business logic related to it inside too. But whenever you solve specific domain problem, there should be something which is the root of everything. And here in the domain-driven design, it's aggregate root. Aggregate root, it's a cluster of every entities inside. It holds the business logic as well related to solving the domain model issues. An aggregate root should be called from outside of the domain model, of outside bounded contexts. Because aggregate root is exactly protects any invariants which you can have inside the domain model. And it will protect whenever any changes needs to be done, it should be only done through the aggregate. But there's sometimes happening that basically you cannot place always everything inside the entities. What exactly can help you to hold the logic, which is naturally cannot be put there, which represents all the couple of entities in the rules. Domain services are there to help you. The main services are also using the same language to put the code base in it. And sometimes whenever you need to prove that the combination of 2 entities needs to be unique, and they hadn't been used anywhere else, for example, you can place this logic inside the services. It's a helper as well to put the logic which cannot be done inside the other objects. Also, to build the big aggregate roots, which can really hold a bunch of entities inside, there are factories who can help you to do that. They will hold and hide the logic in it to really collect all of the needed entities and build and the aggregate root to prove that all of the invariants are there. And also, you need, for example, store this aggregate somewhere or fetch the data from somewhere. Who can help you? It's repositories. Repositories also worth to mention that on the main model are only an interfaces you operate with. Because the main model shouldn't know anything about how it's exactly stored, where it's stored, who is responsible for any of this logic. The details of the implementation of the repositories should be on infrastructure layer. But on the domain layer, you will have the interface which will help you to know that you need to get the data from somewhere and store the data to somewhere. So by knowing all of these building blocks, by having the language, having the understanding for the team that they need really to focus to solve specific problems, how can you really start integrating it? And let's assume that you have a monolithic project, which you ask yourself, is it hard for you really to adjust it? How often do you do this? refactoring there? Are you making sure that the code which you write can be really understandable in 1 year by other people? And is there enough really clarity regarding your code will be really easily adjustable with any business needs? So first of all, let me come to the point. Whenever you start, for example, if you, as I said, have a monolithic project, you can basically, first of all, discuss with domain experts which kind of the bounded contexts you have in the project. To help it, you can have the context map where you would put all of these contexts around, and you can see exactly the relationships between them. And basically, with this context, you will have the clarity regarding what should be solved and how it should be solved. So these contexts can be a lot on the project, and they can be really split easily with any different teams, which will sit down together and try to solve the problem related to specific contexts. So whenever you split them, and your team, for example, gonna take to build the allocation process to invest somewhere money, what you do first? You sit down with your domain experts and start brainstorming regarding what's required to be done there. What's the business rules are needed to be in place to solve specific business problem? Who are parties? Who are that elements which are part of the building the problem, building the solution for the problem? For this, the sake of the example, I will show the basic, we have an allocation and fund where the allocation is going to be placed, an investor who is making an allocation into specific fund. Whenever we build the model and build it the dictionary and the documentation regarding the process to build this solution, you can you need to make sure if there is not in the place in your code base that they are layered architecture which will help you to start solving in the first place the specific problems. So if there is no, first of all, you need to establish it, of course. But if there is already this layered architecture in place, first of all, you can right away start focusing and building the domain solution, where you will put the logic with all of the needed business rules just discussed with domain experts. And right away, you can go and ask the feedback. It's very important in the domain-driven design that you have the constant feedback regarding what you build, not in the last stages when you already delivered the feature and it had been delivered to the to the end client, because sometimes it's really not exactly as I was showing in the picture, not exactly what client was expected to have, or sometimes it's you can imagine maybe you didn't cover other places or some logic wasn't exactly covered properly. And it's super important that on the first stages with domain implementation, you can gather this feedback with the guys. So you developed a domain, you have the layered architecture and you start to build the code base. So let me start with a value object, which I was telling this before. And basically, as I was saying, the value object contains first name and last name. And here inside, you already right away can do the validation, making sure that the name are there and investor is no name person. Whenever you validate it and it's there, it's really there and everything is correct, you can create your entity. As you can see in the name, there is no ID I have. And here in investor, I know that he's going to be unique. I have his identity because I need to use it during the making an allocation. I need to make sure that it's a unique person who making an allocation into specific fund. Here I also place in the beginning, as you can see, name of the investor. And also you can have a bunch of those value objects inside. And they can really hold their own business rules in it. As soon as you have an investor, you know that you can have also fund. So fund is also, we need to know his identity, the identity of the specific fund, and also a minimum commitment required for specific fund. because in general, like we cannot allow to invest $0, maybe like or $1 in the future it will be possible. But for our rules, we need to make sure that it's really followed, that whenever investor making an allocation, it's not less than approved and required to have. And the root of the solution for our specific domain model, it's an allocation. In allocation, as the first parts of it, it's an investor who is one party making an allocation, and fund, where the investor making an allocation. And as you can see, as a part of just a moment, as a part of the business rules inside, I have exactly a rule that the valid commitment entered by the investor is not the less than fund requires to have. If it's not true, then we will throw an exception and tell the investor, sorry, but you need to enter more. And exactly here, you can prove that in aggregate route that these invariants are happening. But there are also, I'm missing one piece, that regarding that I need to make sure that investor didn't make an allocation into specific fund. That it's really unique combination of investor and fund we have in our system. And here, come in the domain services, which actually help you to prove that there is no such combination exists in the system. Here in domain service, you can exactly check if it's not has been placed yet, like exactly investor didn't make an allocation into that fund. If he did it, sorry, you cannot do this again. So, and if not, we will allow to create an allocation and proceed with our last steps on our platform. So as you can see, by focusing exactly building the domain model in the beginning, I can right away take this code and go to the product owners, which is in our case, it's a domain experts, and ask them, is it like I did everything right? Do I miss something? Or maybe there is some other components which I missed to build to cover all of the type of the logic. And as soon as all of the changes, I can right away know that everything will be fine, and then I can proceed to another stages, basically building the storing data, building the presentational layer that the investors will be able to make an allocation, like the form on the platform. But this is like the main core and center of everything of the domain-driven design, making sure that you can build the logic which will be easily understandable by different people in 1 year and 2 years, like 10 years. It can be easily adjustable later on by any business requirements are coming in the future. Because as you can see, like for the past 2 years, our logic was changing a lot on the platform. And exactly by these smaller pieces around the project, smaller pieces in the center of the domain layer, you would be able to change something easily in that exactly place. And do not worry about that you will break something around. So let me come to the point regarding what exactly advantages and disadvantages. So first of all, for me personally, advantages are really like that you can have the central place of the business logic. You can write a really adjustable and maintainable code in it. So in the overall, you will really make an abstract code, which you will not focus exactly on one specific database type and worry about how it will work. You can, based on the needed then solutions, based on needed problems, you can use different type of the databases in it. And also it's important to gather the feedback always in the beginning, not in the end, in the last steps. Do not have a bunch of other tickets regarding the refactoring or changing or adjusting your code. Of course, I'm not saying that it will not ever happen. I would like to tell that also it will really help you to build the boundaries as well, to focus on building these business rules in it. But of course, from the disadvantages, I would like to tell that it's a little bit going to be time consuming, but it's only in the beginning, because in the long term, it's a win in terms of like possibilities really adjust the code and build the really complex, big software projects. Of course, it will require from engineers and domain experts understanding how to build and design those models. From the engineers, it will require them to understand the responsibilities of different layers, who are the root of everything, where to place specific logic. And there are books which are help to do that. And in the end, I will share with you these resources. And I would say maybe it won't make any sense to provide this solution for such projects like CRUD, means that create, read, update, delete projects, because this will bring a lot of complexity and too much, I think, abstractions in it. I'm not going to say that it's not possible. Of course, you can have it there, but I would not say that it will really bring the value for like projects like blog. There is no need to have the explicit and domain focus. So I would like, I don't think that I'm running on time, but before like questions, would like to say that in the end, there are resources which can help you. First of all, a book from Eric Evans, like Domain-Driven Design, which can exactly show all of these details. And also with one well-known book, you can see exactly how you can implement the domain-driven design in your projects. So I guess that's it from my side. So first of all, thank you. And I'm open for any questions you have. Yes.
Hi. How was it? How did it feel?
Are you asking myself?
Yeah, I'm back already.
Oh, it was really like, I hope that I could really explain the benefits of this approach, and I hope that people who really faced with the same issues which we faced can really use it to solve the same problems in their projects.
I love that. I especially love it what you said, but you need to gather feedback in the beginning, not in the end, you know?
Yes.
Because then the whole process is not going right, and you're like, oh, okay, we need to fix everything and start from the very beginning. So yeah, gather feedback in the beginning. So dear listeners, do you have any questions for Elena who are tuning in? Checking.
I would like to say that whenever you will have also questions, you can always ping me in, send me a message in the LinkedIn if you will have the questions in the later stages. And let's stay in touch. We are going to participate tomorrow on the call regarding what we do in our company. You can join the networking, and I will answer on any questions whenever you have about the process and how we decided really to use this approach as well there.
Absolutely. We also, meanwhile, got some questions for you, and I want to tell that anyone who is interested they can go to the Korea Expo, where they have Moonfa and talk directly to the hiring specialists and engineers. So here are several questions. What role does DDD play under CNA? From Anita. To
be honest, I'm not sure how exactly CNA stands for. So if you could really place exactly explanation of those.
Anita, could you provide more details to your question? And we're taking the next question meanwhile. Thank you, Elena, for the presentation. Can you explain more about aggregates?
Sure. Basically, an aggregate, as I was saying before, it's the root of the solution for domain models. They are basically going to have the main logic related to the business rules related to solve the specific domain problems. They will be the central place which needs to be called from outside of the bounded context. You shouldn't really call any entities from the related to the domain model, and these aggregates will really protect the invariance of creating the entities which are part of this domain model problem. The aggregates will place the business logic related to solve the specific problem. And as I mentioned, they are a central place for these solutions. And yeah, they are what you need to call whenever you need to integrate a couple of bounded contexts together and use the specific bounded context in it.
Great, thanks, Elena. Thank you very much. We have another question. If you want to get back to this CNA, so CNA stands for Cloud Native Architecture. So the question was, The
Yeah.
question was what role does DDD play under CNA, Cloud Native Architecture?
I'm not sure that I will really answer right, but from my understanding, like whenever you will build a project and you will need to split the big project into the different smaller chunks, and you can easily do this with splitting your whole monolithic platform into smaller bundled contexts and build the different microservices which you can later on share through the cloud. Basically, you can have the different pieces like which will be the part of the whole domain model, and you can then reuse them to solve the different issues which you face with your domain platform. Yeah, basically, as I mentioned, like the big projects can be split into smaller chunks, and they can be served in the cloud afterwards. I feel that it's really will help to build in the right way in the end, using this approach to focus on solving specific business needs.
Thanks, Elena. People are asking if you could share your GitHub address or how they can get in touch with you. I don't see on your slides, so if they can, like, you have your LinkedIn here featured, everyone. You can have a look on the slide right now and go
I will
get in touch with Elena.
I will definitely try to share it on the networking. I will send a message with my GitHub account and where you can see my contribution there.
People are sharing that. Thanks a lot for the great presentation, a very interesting session. Thanks a lot, Elena. I think we have one more minute and we can take one more question. Let me check. So hi, Elena. What programming languages do you use?
To be honest, at the moment we use Node.js with TypeScript, but previously, like in my previous experience, I've been using PHP. And the thing is that domain-driven design is not really regarding the specific programming language. You can use different of them, and the main topic is about to use the right approach to build these complex projects. And you can use Java, C#, PHP, Node.js, anything you would use, which will help you, like, doesn't matter like the language, and the matter about the really like the writing the code, which can be really adjustable and maintainable in the future.
Thank you. Thanks, Elena. People are clapping you and sending their thanks. So thank you very much. And I'm wishing you a great day. Thanks for taking your time to join us today. You can talk to Elena at Expo area, at Moonfair, and learn more about the opportunities they're offering. Thank you very much, Elena, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.